Okay, so we've got everybody muted, tones off, and recording going. So I just want to say welcome to everyone, and thank you all for coming on to participate with us again in this really powerful in-between moment of the eclipse time. And the energy is, again, it's really vast. Wow, we're up to 17 people. Awesome. Yes, so I mean, this last week, I opened it up for everyone just to call in and chat. Actually, I think the first night it was just me and actually I think Karen had called and we talked for just a couple minutes, and so I ended up not doing anything that night. Then we had like 7 or 8 the next night, but it's really been good just to have you guys to be able to articulate what's happening with you, dynamics you see around the world, how you're perceiving things, questions of how the intensity is working for each of us individually, but also within the collective. And y'all had some great questions this week. We had great discussions, and just in deep gratitude for all of you. I'm going to continue to do that this whole next week, tomorrow night, and then all the way through. The next eclipse call will be this next Saturday on the 29th. So that will be the solar eclipse at 9 degrees Aries, which is going to hit me really. It's like going to be immediate, like in my space and sphere. So I don't have a clue. I mean, unless I get blinked out of the world, I don't know. It's going to be a very intense energy, and yet we are very powerful creators. It does not mean that I'm going to create a negative thing with this. I think it's going to really be a place where I actually can step into my own power just as a deeper awareness. And that really is as an aspect of spirit. And it's true for every single one of us. That's one of the things, as we talked about some of the things happening in the external world of form this week. And again, it's kind of like Pam Gregory talks about in different ones. It's like, what do we choose to focus on? And you can either focus on higher vibrational creation, or stay stuck in the third dimensional stuff that's falling apart. Because it really is always true. We're always in deep disintegration as well as reformulation and regeneration. All of those things are constantly happening all the time. And I think that if we can try to place our focus there, get rid of that word try. It's so funny. I get every time I say something like that by spirit. It's like, what is try? There's no try. Try is like an attempt to sit there and passively aggressively say you're going to do something knowing you're not going to do it. It's just a subtle shift in our self-talk. It's a subtle shift in how we step into our power or don't step into our power. How we can either know something or not know something, and again, we just are our I am presence. I am here. I'm going to be in joy today. Some people talk about happy. Well, happy is a fleeting feeling. There can be different things that happen in our lives that make us happy in that moment, and yet it's gone in the next second. Whereas at the same time, we can also stay in deep joy, just heartfelt centered joy. And that's a sustaining moment of presence. It really is where we're deeply immersed in our essence, and we're just exuding the joy. Happy is one of those things where it's kind of like the mind wants to feel like we're happy because of something in the external world. But joy is something that's an internal event. And I really feel like that's one thing that we are being not processed, but we're being invited to stay in that space as much as we can, especially with everything happening in the world. I mentioned to a couple of you when we had logged on early, I'll share it with everyone now, but I had just finally been able to listen to Pam Gregory's video on this upcoming eclipse, the solar eclipse on the 29th of March. And of course, I mean, there were no big surprises in there for me because, I mean, I've listened to her so many times over the last couple of years. But she really articulates the vastness of what's happening on astrologically speaking. She explains it very well. But also, the energies of it. And then, of course, when I go into it, Spirit wants to take me deeper into soul level awareness for everyone that's listening. Because, I mean, there's the astrology of it and understanding those technical dynamics of the way that, the planet energies work. And, of course, yes, we're a reflection of those. But there was something, I've mentioned it in a couple of calls before, but I talked about it either last night or the night before with our little group too. There's something about what happens if you give up all of the old definitions of the way that the astrology has been projected to us all these years. And I really get told that this is an important jump. A lot of astrologers don't necessarily mention this because they're immersed in the astrology. And so if that's where you're at and your mind is there and your heart and soul is processing the astrology, obviously that's going to be your kind of default in the way you see the world and the way you project your value about it and the way you explain it. Spirit, and this has obviously happened because Jude took me deeper into this. Spirit says, who are you beyond the astrology? Who are you beyond the projected mythology? It doesn't mean that we haven't all had different dynamics of things happen to us. And I was also talking about this, the vast majority of us, as far as the group, I would say are in mid to late 60s to 70s, and even early 80s. One or two of you potentially. I know one off the top of my head. But so the bulk of this group is in a more accelerated progression of soul. You've already done lots of work either with Judith or other healers or whoever it has been that's been your jumping points in life. Your teachers. We all have our teachers. They're all over the map as far as the quality and level of the remedial lessons we came here to either clear out karmically, bring ourselves back to 0 point, as far as an energetic expression of who we are, just really taking ourselves to 0 point. And I bring that all up for this particular reason. In this particular call, we're in between the 0 point of eclipses. Well, we're in the 0 point. Between the eclipse on the 14th and the eclipse on the 29th, we're at the 22nd of March. And there's something about being at that midpoint in the eclipses where it's kind of like there's no polarity with the first eclipse and the second eclipse coming up. There's a place right in the middle in between. It's a very deep, sweet spot that we're in. It doesn't mean that we're not affected by both eclipses, because we are. The energy of eclipses usually lasts for about 6 months, according to most astrologers' interpretations. And I do feel that that's true. When you look at the moon cycles and you look at the cycles of eclipses, usually the eclipse cycles go for about 2 years on the axis that they're operating in. We were in the Aries-Libra axis for the last 2 years. This upcoming eclipse on the 29th is going to be the last of those eclipses. So for the last 2 years, we've really been going back and forth between who are we as an I am presence, as well as Libra, which is the other. And I've talked about this quite a bit in the calls, so I won't go into that very deeply. The previous eclipse that we've just had, though, on the 14th, is Virgo-Pisces axis. And that's going to happen now for another basically 2 years, that series of eclipses. So that's going to take us between kind of like, Virgo is kind of like the virgin energy. It's kind of like that who are we as a divine expression of the material, of the not material, but of the divine feminine, in my feeling of it, and then as juxtaposed to Pisces, which is that end of the zodiac. It's the end of creation. It's the end of the dream. It's the end of all of these things, which is what we're moving from with Neptune and Saturn going to Aries, creating the new dream. And I was trying to explain this a bit last night in some of, to explain some of the dynamics. There was some questions regarding, how can we observe this world that's in constant disintegration and deep dysfunction, and as we watch it fall apart, it's like, how can we be in observance of that without, taking it on? And it really is hard. I mean, it's so hard to be in the world but not of the world, and that's really what this next, basically a year and a half until like about next July, really is going to be the core of stepping into our mastery. And part of that, again, is being in our own individual Bardo states. We may not have to be in a place where we have to reflect back with God as far as the totality of what we've been, because if we've already done that work, it's kind of like beating a dead horse. You can only go back and meet yourself so many times and, in so many deep ways before you finally give it up. And then there's just nothing else to reflect on. And at some point, we do get there. We really do. And yet the mind still wants to pull us back in because of some little crumb that the external world will throw us that brings us back into some other deep sense of observation, self-observation within regards to the external world. And it can be your family, friends, dynamics. But I think the biggest lesson we're coming into right now is how to release the dynamics of the political structures, the financial, educational, religious, all of those things that have held us in a deep enslavement. And this has gone on for eons of time. So again, don't beat yourself up if you feel like you get caught going into some of that again, because, I mean, this has been such a deep, long patterning within our DNA, and that does not clear out easily. At the same time, it only continues to exist as long as we continue to insist that it exists. So, and I bring that up for this reason here. We're in this place of just immediacy in these eclipses. I find it to be a still point, although both energies are still equal as far as operating within how our field is being affected. So, we've got this last eclipse on the 14th. That's a full moon energy, lots of releasing. At the same time, this next new moon in Aries, and that's at the beginning of Aries. So it's brand new creations. It's working with this whole stellium of planets. You've got Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Aries, the North Node going back into Pisces, creating a new dream from the end of the zodiac. And that can feel really, really daunting because that moves backwards. And just a reminder, the nodes are basically taking us into deep processing of our emotional selves, because the moon is all about our emotional bodies, how we perceive, what we love, how we love, all these things. But the nodes are the actual pathway in which the moon and also oscillating Lilith, Priapus, which is basically an opposition point of Lilith as far as it should be higher divine masculine energy, but a lot of times Priapus plays out as it's kind of like the big penis energy. It's like a big dick contest, and everybody's out there. Just look at the external world, and that's how it's playing out in lower function. And it's sad, but sadly, it's the conditioning of that last really deep animal. It's the anima and animus of who we are as primal beings. And if you look at how that's playing out, that's what we're seeing. It really is. The patriarchy is coming into this deep control of breaking down. It's a bull in a china shop. I won't name names for anything. And yet, and I've always said this, and it's really true, every soul is serving the purpose, the sole purpose they came here to do. They're absolutely embodying it. It's for us to not be in a projection of a judgment on what we think is happening with that particular soul as far as that soul journey, but also how the soul journey is affecting the external world. We have to go through this disintegration to be able to build the new. And that's one thing that Spirit is really clear about. And different people are writing about that to the extent that they, that they're going in and observing in the way they see the world based on their own conditioning, their own belief systems, their own evolution of soul and progression. So, and again, there's not a comparison. There's not a better or less than way of observing the world. As we continually go into our own hearts, we're just going to see through the totality of everything. And actually, Pam Greger mentioned this in her video for next week's eclipse a lot regarding this. She talked about the role of Neptune, and I've mentioned this several times. It really is going to take us deeply into observing the delusions, the false reality. A lot of that's going to fall away because Neptune is at that 29th degree of Aries. And I've said that several times, and it's really true. And how do we allow that stuff to fall away and not be taken into an undertow with it? That's the key. And that's where we're stepping in our mastery. Just bottom line. We can be in this world, but we don't have to be controlled or manipulated or even in reaction to anything we see. And all those structures have been in our lives for actually decades and centuries. Some of these structures, they're crumbling. And that's very stressful to the psyche when we've been conditioned into believing something is true and something is like a pillar in our community, or it's like a cornerstone of how we perceive the world or how we exist in the world. To have those things fall away can literally bring some people to the deepest part of their core as far as fear. And it's going to be a potential challenge to stay out of that. Pam also talked about with the dynamic of where things were, there could be a really big change in currency, money, how we use money, the form of it. And I've been feeling that for quite a while. And it could be activated with this eclipse she talks about, just because of historical things that she's gone back and looked at. She also reminded about something I've mentioned quite a bit lately too. Neptune has not been in this place. She said it's exactly 160 years. It was April of 1861, I believe is when it was. Or I'm sorry, not. Yeah, because it was 1861. So somehow it's just right in, and just to the month, within a certain time period, as far as where we were at that time. And she said one of her other, someone that was listening to the video commented that it was like a day after or before the American Revolution, or not the Civil War. I'm sorry, Civil War happened. So, again, you can't make this stuff up. That does not mean we have to have a civil war this time, although when you look at the external world, in the United States, we're kind of in a quiet or not so quiet civil war because of the polarization that has happened with people being drawn into polarization with regards to ideas, topics, belief systems, what's right or wrong about this and that, and what have you. So I do think that as we have disintegration of the government, though, in its old form, I do know this. Nature abhors a vacuum. There are already souls that are in place to come forward with things to replace anything that's going into disintegration right now. That's always true. No matter what happens within our lives. I mean, sometimes if we leave a job, we may leave a relationship, a family, whatever. Whatever we create with a void with regards to something or someone else, I assure you there's already an energy that's going to come crashing in. It's like that's part of the soul progression as far as group soul work that we do. You know, people come and go, ideas come and go, structures come and go. And I'm taking us into all of this because the 0 point is really the place of nothing within this eclipse window. I mean, it is literally, imagine that you're in the eye of a hurricane. And that really is kind of the way the center point of an eclipse window is. Because on the front end of the eclipse window, you've got one eclipse, and it has a different operation. The next eclipse has another operation. In this particular one, the lunar eclipse comes first, and of course that's a full moon, and that's releasing energy, and the solar eclipse is a new moon, so that's new beginning energy. Sometimes those eclipses are transposed, and you can have the solar eclipse first and the lunar second, but in this case it works this way. And sometimes you have 3 eclipses in a period, but fortunately we're just having a nice, simple, dual eclipse. But there's something about being in this immediate moment of nothing and quieting our minds and our hearts and our souls to let spirits come through and just radiate. Just radiate. There's all of this deep plasma energy that's coming from the sun and the great central sun, the great central sun, so on and so forth. And that energy is radiating our cellular structure. It's radiating the earth. They talk about global warming. It's not about that. And most people, I don't think, have a frame of reference of how to discuss it. When you look at what's coming in, it's basically adamantine particles. It's plasma. We are plasma. As that energy hits the atmosphere, it's creating a change in the field. Again, this goes back to the morphogenetic field. We are in a field. We're constantly in a morphing change. And if anyone's ever curious about that, just Google Rupert Sheldrake. He's from England, and he wrote about the morphogenetic field pretty extensively, and the way that he perceived it to be, for the last 30 years. And he explains it from a quantum mechanics standpoint. He explains it, all the science behind it based on what they've had at that particular point of time. Now, as Pam talks about, and some of these other, people that are really deep, wide and wild thinkers, we're supposedly going to be going into really vast new deep knowings with regards to technology, with regards to science, huge advancements. And part of it may just be that it's time for these things to be released. I mean, a lot of this is already known, and they've been playing with, quantum theory for years, but I really think they're going to bring quantum computing out into the open. They've already brought AI out to everything. When I bought my new computer this last month, I mean, it's already got AI enabled and everything in it, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to allow that to continue or if I'm going to shut the AI part down. It also brings in the question, even if I shut the AI down in the computer, is there some back door where the AI is going to continue operating on the computer? There are so many questions that our world opens up to now as far as how much control do we really have over, especially things like computers, because they're technologies. And if AI is its own thinking, who's to say that it won't think itself and do what it wants to do? I mean, even my computer for the last 12 years turns itself on and does updates all by itself, and at the most inopportune times, sometimes it's kind of aggravating. It just makes a decision. It goes and reboots itself and does all its thing all on its own. So the computer's already doing it, but there wasn't an artificial intelligence within it that was doing it at that time, or at least that I'm aware of. And I don't want to get stuck on that, so I'm not bringing it up from that standpoint. But I do bring it up from a standpoint of we have to be vigilant in every single thing that we're choosing to have in our lives, because there's no separation between us and anything. And as we make conscious choices of what we will have operating in our life, and that can be computers, it can be any sorts of technologies, our iPhones, all of these things are going to continually shift and morph, I think, exponentially within this next year. I mean, I think there's been a new iPhone thing that they're going to have as a release that I think is going to just blow us all out of the water. I've not read up on a lot of what it is, but it's probably going to be the same thing that's happening on, Microsoft operating systems with the computers, where AI has taken over everything. Again, it's not about being in fear. It is being about making choices on what we want something other than us to control. And this is going to be a core thing we have to always be mindful of and heartful of, I think, from here on out. I mean, we really are in the Wild West as far as this chasm between human and artificial technological creation. They have tried to merge the technology into the human expression already on so many deep levels. And I mean, I hope that they don't get us to a point where they attempt to force people into this, but I mean, from what we've heard and seen, you never know what they're going to try to do. So just be mindful of that. I mean, and we'll always be in communication, so we can talk about these things and share, if something's happening in certain cities. I mean, they're already talking about making a lot of these cities smart cities. So much of what they've burned off in North Carolina, they've been talking about that being a smart city out there. Los Angeles, I think Lahaina's burn off was a whole different thing. I mean, Oprah bought like another 1,000 acres or something, I think I was reading the other day. Although Oprah's life is now coming out. There's a lot of discussion with regards to her and P. Diddy and these things. And again, we don't want to focus on these things. I only bring it up from the standpoint of anything that was in the external world that it was built on, which has been the lie, has to disintegrate. And it's going to do it in front of us. I don't think some of it may be hidden, but they may allow some stuff to fall away and not necessarily put it on the mainstream news. But I have a feeling they're going to parade the bulk of the disintegration for everyone to see, because otherwise we won't believe that it was false. And the false reality has been it's been expressed in a very, very, very vast amount of ways as far as human, the dynamics. And I won't even go into all of that tonight because that certainly is not what we're going to focus on. We really want to focus just on this 0 point energy and the new creations. That's one thing I asked several people with the calls this last week. What do you want to create? Is there some dream in you that something you've always wanted to do? I don't care if you are in your 80s or 70s or what have you. It's like if there's something that you're drawn to do, it could be writing a book, it could be, creating anything. It doesn't matter what it is. We may feel more challenged to have a certain type of creation in later life because depending on where you are in the progression of soul, you may say, oh, I'm already 70. Gosh, I've outlived my so-and-so. I've outlived this one, grandparents or what have you. You don't want to go into comparison if you are doing any of that. And I don't think most of you are. At the same time, when we are in a later time of life, it does make us still wonder what would be the highest potentiality of creation at this later point of life, point. Pam has also talked about in different times, and I really think this is going to be true, especially with these technological releases that I think will come up, and she does too, that there's going to be things that we can do to assist the body on a cellular level as far as regeneration on a cellular level so that we age much less quickly. The body as a reflection of age will not necessarily look as an aged being because there's going to be technologies that kind of allow almost for a reversal in the aging process on a cellular level. And so if the cells can go into deeper regeneration, it has to come out in the external world as a reflection of that. I've seen people that went down the rabbit hole as far as drinking, drugs, rock and roll, everything else, and the body aged very fast. We've all seen that with different people. They could be 30, 40, 50 years old, and if they've been on crystal meth, they look so cracked out. They look like they're almost 60 or 70 years old, like double their age when they're going on the way out because of the damage that's been done cellularly. While at the same time, if we've been trying to take care of ourselves on a deep cellular level, either through nutrition and sleep and just all these kinds of different things, if technologies do come out, and I do think this is frequency healing. Frequency healing has already been out there for a long time. It happens either through light, different light waves of frequencies. It can happen through sound frequencies. It can also happen through vibrational, either touch. It can happen through just a whole host of things, but it's all frequential. So if we can find whatever that is, and your soul has already planned that out. That's the other thing that's interesting to kind of take in. We've had this whole journey so far where we've gone through life and we thought we were in creation of it and in control of it, and yet when you go back at it and look at it, you think, how much control did I have as far as the experience, that I've lived up, through already so far. We can take the epics of our lives, which are like a time period, we all go through the youthful part of life. Many people in their youth have it already pre-written in the script that they have to go through because of karma or whatever, the deep wounding yet again, either the sexual distortions, the attacks, the deep primal wounding in that way, It can just be simple abandonment. It can be a whole host of things. And then, of course, when we get to the later ages, you're choosing education levels, or do you go into enslavement really early and go into a simple job and you just stay in that job for 40 years, 50 years till you die? And that's been the deepest enslavement pattern that's been projected in Western civilizations, for the last several decades. And it doesn't mean that it was bad work, because obviously anything that we're doing, we're contributing something to our society and the world around us. We wouldn't be driving cars if there weren't souls that came in to work in factories. We wouldn't be, living in houses if there weren't people that were electricians and plumbers and construction experts. And people have always talked about too, it's like when you're in this life and you're making a choice of what are you going to do, you hope that you're doing something that you're doing in joy. Whatever it is, you love doing it. And you may think, well, on God's green earth, would someone enjoy going around and, digging in plumbing and having to go deal with the infrastructure of, all of everyone's dysentery world? I can't imagine that's a very joyous life path, and yet it's been necessary, because if we didn't have that, we could not function as a society. It would not be pretty if we did not have the systems that worked to take off, basic human waste, especially in cities. We go back and, to centuries ago when we had so much death through disease patterns and viruses and bacteria and what have you. At the same time, I do think there's going to be technological advances that are going to replace some of those mundane things where humans don't have to do those jobs. The question would then become, what will humans do that have been deeply immersed in the habituated enslavement patterns, and mechanical things, infrastructure issues that support societies? It's like, what would the new roles be in this new earth when we do have technologies that can handle a lot of those other things? Another thing Pam talks about is, Neptune and Pisces is all about oceans, the water. She really has gone deeply on that in the last couple of years, and it's really true. But she thinks there's a lot of technological advances, like there's some algae that eats plastics, microplastics. And I've read about that too. So I think things like that are going to come out, and it can solve those problems really quickly. So, if that algae can just, grow, and it doesn't necessarily hurt the ocean, but it can go after the plastics, like in those huge vortexes where you've got so much plastic trash in the Pacific. I forget what that's called. Anyway, but there's like this whole place, a vortex, where it all ends up. It's just awful. But if we can have that type of technology that's out to do that, it's going to clean up the planet pretty quickly. So I think we're moving into a place, again, that's immediacy. So I already feel like that the solutions have already been made for these things. The solutions are already there to cure cancers. The cancer only exists in people because of the distortion of food supplies, as well as the chemical processes, from the distortions of other things that we ingest. But there's also the radiation and the chemical treatment. The very treatments also continue the cancers to go. So until the medical world that is upside down gets turned right side up again, it's like, and I think that can happen pretty quickly. And hopefully the things that are changing right now in place are going to accelerate that, hopefully. Yeah. So there's all of these these huge shifts that are happening on large levels, and they're things that don't necessarily affect us immediately, and yet they do affect us in some form. And it's hard to stay in a knowing that Spirit has us in a place where the unfoldment is going to happen quickly, and I do think it's going to happen quickly. I mean, that's one thing the astrologers talk about, because as we go from Pisces, the old world, into Aries, the new world, it's a wormhole. It's an absolute wormhole to go from Pisces to Aries, because you're going from the end of the zodiac back into a new beginning. And that's one thing Pam talks about in this last video quite a bit as well. But each of us have to sit in that and ask ourselves, what does that feel like as we go through the old and then birth the new? And part of what I'm hoping we're doing in these calls, and I think we are, is addressing how do we feel, the way that the energy is hitting us on the emotional, mental, spiritual, and then, of course, the physical levels of the body. I mean, it can feel like you're being bombarded. And no matter what, do not feel like you're going crazy, because you're not. I've had moments where I just feel like, some days it's just awful. I'm not going to sit here and just play like it's all love and light, because it is, but it's not. There's still, we have to be very, and I hate that word, authentic, because so much is projected onto the word authentic that I think is just false. But we have to be very real with ourselves with regards to what we're going through, and we have to honor the process of the whole thing. And again, everything is just energy. And one of the most powerful things Jude's ever taught me is do not, no matter what's happening, no matter what energy is coming at you or attempting to interact with you, if it's family, friends, whatever. If it's an emotional energy they're trying to entrap you with, if it's a little dance they're trying to engage you in spite or an anger, resentment, don't take the bait. It's a false reality. It doesn't even exist. I don't care what the topic is. It only exists if you choose for it to exist. And it may mean that you just have to walk away. Just Tai Chi it off and let it fall away. I don't care who it is. It can be your parents, kids, does not matter. Do not engage. That's my suggestion to you. Whether you choose to do it or not, that's your choice. And I could sit here and say, do not engage, but that's almost like a statement of, don't you dare do this. And I don't want to do that, because it is free will choice, obviously. And I guess that gets brought up if you have a dynamic with kids or grandkids, and they are really expressing, themselves in unconscious ways. My highest advice to you, if you've not learned that just simple psychology 101, please consider not just going to the child and say, you can't do that. The very thing they're going to do is to go do it as the screw you and say, yes, I can do it. That's the most core way that any human takes their power. And it's not necessarily a conscious way of taking power, but they will do it as a reaction to you being told that they can't do something. And if we all go into our own hearts, if we've ever been told we can't do something, that's the first thing we do is to go do that. And that's one of the reasons that we've been so drawn into, unconsciously, into supporting these old narratives, to supporting these old systems. They don't work. They're not functional. They're not sustainable. We've beat the dead horse on so many things in our lives for so long. And there will be people that absolutely will do anything they can to keep the status quo because it's all they know. And you're going to feel like you're going to be drawn into a place where you think like it's your place to say something. Sometimes the greatest way for someone to learn something is to go through and learn it and have to experience it. We have to do it experientially. And you may want to try to protect your child, grandchild, whoever, friend, I don't care who it is, but sometimes you have to let them fall and go through the experience. You can be there as a cushion and say, well, how can I support you after? You can sit there and say, you told them so, but that doesn't help anything either. If they're really smart, deeply reflective, they may say, oh, you told me this could happen. You can be like, well, you don't have to acknowledge it. They'll know. But that's just kind of the way that part of human nature works too. But so many people are just not self-reflective right now. And yet I also think that the energy and the astrology and the dynamics of things that are happening, I think unconsciously people are going to be taken into self-reflection, either by necessity of their circumstances that are falling apart around them, or it could just be a natural dynamic, as far as just the energy that's happening as far as astrologically. I think part of that's Neptune, part of it's Saturn, the work we come here to do, self-reflection. This is Aries and Mercury. Both of it, Mercury is, some of you have already heard this, but there's a couple of new ones on the call that haven't been on in a while, so I want to clarify this point because it's really important. Mercury and Venus are both in retrograde right now. Everything that we communicate in the world, every kind of communication is up for a retrograde and review. Everything that we value in the world, either money, things of beauty, what we think is important in our homes, businesses, whatever, that's all Venus ruled. That's in retrograde. That's retrograde all the way through April the 12th. Mercury's through April the 7th. We're literally re-evaluating who we are in our core. And with that aspect and playing around with Neptune and Saturn, this is the most deep, in-depth life review that we've ever done within our lifetimes. And that's why I also call it the Bardo state. So who are you as an aspect of God, the all that is? And as you continually go into that and you answer that question for yourself, that's where you're going to find yourself more and more and more. And the more that you let old habits fall away, patterns fall away, you just attend whatever comes forth. We still may have some karmic stuff we're playing out, still cause-effect reality that's still residue. And again, this is, it's not a process that's going to end on a certain day. I do think it takes place during this whole next 18 months, 15 more months now, basically when the nodes went into Pisces and Virgo from Aries. Those are 18-month timetables. I think it's an 18-month process of internal reflection, as Pisces represents religions, Neptune, all these kinds of things. Of course, Neptune's leaving it, but Pisces is, and it can be the hidden aspect of who we feel like we are as God. I do think that, again, this goes all the way into July of next year, but I do think that by that point, at least, we'll have a better semblance of who we are and what we want to create. So, and again, with eclipses, there are going to be things that either you're consciously creating and a shift is going to come into your life either by your choice, making a decision that you want to create something new and you go for that because your heart's drawn into it. There'll be other people that you'll have an external circumstance that just comes in. You won't see it coming. It can be death of a family member, can be closing of a business, or it can be anything. It doesn't matter. But your life will change because of an external circumstance, like mine did back in 2010. So anyway, but the main thing we know is that change is going to happen, and a lot of change. The other thing Pam, talked about again, and I've mentioned this over the last few times too, Uranus is going to be in such a placement that it's going to create a lot of change, especially as it changes signs into Gemini from Taurus here coming up. I think she said it was July of this year. There's just going to be so much shift when that happens, and in the way we create. But between now and the beginning of summer, I think a lot of things are just going to be in flux. It doesn't mean that you can't create something. It doesn't mean that you won't know what you're doing. But at the same time, it may feel very foggy. It may feel like you have not a clue. And I've had this conversation with a lot of you, too. We feel like we've been treading water for, some of us years. It literally feels like years as far as having the capacity to create something different. And there's something about being in that pregnant pause that it almost seems like sometimes when you're in a moment where nothing is happening and it happens for years until something big happens, it's almost like a big pregnant, something's going to be birthed so big that when it's done, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I never would have done that if I had known it was going to be like that. It's kind of one of those things. And part of that's getting out of the way, letting go and letting God, whatever that is, however that works for you. Because you're always in control, and yet sometimes the best way to be in control is to release and let your higher aspects of self work that out in a multidimensional expression. I know so many times when my mind has told me, oh, I want to create this or I want to do this, and I create whatever it was, so many times there'll be things that I just didn't see, and I'm like, oh gosh, I wouldn't have created that if I'd known that. How many times do we do that in life? It's like, you're like, oh shoot, I really shouldn't have done that. And it can be something so simple, and yet we missed something so crucial because we didn't allow for a more divine timing of something. And that's the other thing we're also being brought into, is to kind of be in awareness of what is divine timing with our new creations and new life. When is it we're supposed to actually do something, and when is it we're supposed to sit back and allow for the movement to happen behind the scenes, and then also know in our hearts when we're supposed to be in response. It's like we're responding into that next moment because our heart is drawn and says, oh, this is go time. This is when you do something. Otherwise, you're in a place of, I'm just going to sit here and the world's going to bring me whatever. And if you're only waiting for the world to bring you the default version may not be everything you envisioned it to be. If we're not actively involved in co-creating the world that we're doing, sometimes the default universe is not so nice. It doesn't have to be bad, but it may bring unconscious places that we still have to go in and learn and take our power. So I know that may be a long, convoluted way of trying to get some clarity here with this energy, but it's where Spirit took me. So there we are. Yes. So some of you had asked about whether or not I do astrological charts and things. I just don't. I've never been formally trained in it, so I don't really feel comfortable in doing a session, with anyone where I would take you into your chart and doing these things. I'd probably do okay with it, but I would really rather go, contact. There's so many astrologers out there, and I think that they will do you a higher service with that. It doesn't mean, if you have a question here or there, you can put, process in something with us, and, we can go into a deeper reflection of it. But I don't know, there's something with this time period where Spirit's got me working on macro level stuff. And just by listening to these, moon sessions, when you've come and attended these things, I think you can probably see the bigger picture dynamic that Spirit's taking me into, rather than going into micro work with one-on-one with people. There's something that's happening. It's like the whole progression of the collective soul is happening so fast that I'm being asked to constantly just keep my focus on big picture stuff. And I'm getting more close to where I'm going to do a bigger video regarding some of these things. And astrology is not going to be off limits, but it's going to be in bigger picture explanation, like I've already been doing here. Yeah. And part of that is just sitting in these eclipses. There was someone I was listening to the other day that was talking about this energy with what's happening right now. And they were talking about some people are absolutely being moved to create something, put it out there in the world right now, and some people it's just not there yet. And they were like, if it's not there yet, don't put it out yet unless you know all the way in your core that that's the moment of time, because we're in such review session individually and collectively. People may not get to see and hear what you're putting out because everything is in reflective energy, especially with regards to Venus values and Mars communication. So it's one reason I'm still putting on hold what I'm formulating, and at the same time, I already know it's created, and I also know that there is a divine timing, and when I present that out, it's going to be perfect. It's kind of like when I started these calls this time last year. I mean, we're here at almost a year. It was March 25th last year, so this is basically almost a year anniversary of doing these calls. That just happened. It happened out of the blue. I'm sending all of y'all a message one day, and everybody gets on the call. We just did it out of the blue. So much of what I've done in life has been just spontaneous. I don't know if I get moved to do something. It's what you do. And there's also been something, Spirit was explaining this to me kind of the other day when I was sitting with it. There was something about doing this for a year and just allowing myself to be immersed in it, feel comfortable with it, to know, I guess, to gain a clarity, an internal clarity, in getting out of the way and letting Spirit come forth and present. It's kind of been a process in me, in, I guess, taking my own power, although it doesn't feel like a me, because, I just feel like I get out of the way and just Spirit just talks, because, half the time I know I'm talking in this call, and I'm looking around my room, the living room. I'm just looking here, looking there. I don't know what I'm going to say next. It just comes forth. It's the most bizarre thing. Sometimes I wonder if there's a flow and coherence. I feel like there is. And I think most everyone keeps coming back to the calls for obviously certain reasons. So you're obviously getting something out of it, with regards to that. And you all tell me you are. So, and again, I'm not looking for an external validation. It's more of an internal. It's an internal knowing. It's something about becoming comfortable in oneself as an expression of something bigger than ourselves. And I think we're all put in that kind of dynamic all the time. And I've said this before. At some point, each of you, anyone that's been on this call, you could get on a call and you could initiate a call yourself, and you could have friends come in, and you could probably articulate in your own way. Well, I know you could. You could articulate in your own way everything you have gone through, a soul progression at any point of time, and you could also provide that type of support or services for anybody in your life. We all go through that. Now, some people won't choose to do that because the soul's not drawn to do that. And yet, that's kind of the point where, with all of this awakening we're doing, we're each awakening each other to just be the light for someone else, whatever it is. If there's some awareness that can be brought forth, I mean, when I was doing this with Jude, I certainly didn't imagine me sitting here doing this. And yet there was just the impetus that got brought forth. She had just passed away, and there was the need. There was a void there. And Spirit said, "You're going to go do this." I'm like, okay. So, and again, that's where the universe does not want a void. It does not want a place where there's just a vacuous energy. There'll always be some way to fill it. And in many ways, you're going to be filling that kind of void in something in your own life and within some dynamic. There's always the potential to do that. And some people can do it, and there will be a much wider audience for it. Some people will do it, and you may have an audience of your family or friends or people you work with, and it'll just be a smaller theater. That's all. And again, do not compare anything about your own life to anything you see in the external world, because God does not do a comparison of that. We really are not judged by God, and I think that's one of the biggest fallacies that we've taken on, that's been projected onto us, is that we're somehow being judged by God. It just doesn't feel real to me at all. We are judging ourselves more than God could ever remotely judge us, and that's a huge paradigm shift. When you can step into that and know it in the depth of your heart, you really take your own power back, and that's a major thing to know right now in this midpoint of eclipses. And perhaps this is even though you may have heard it a few times before, because you're hearing it at a 0 point in between eclipses, maybe this is when it sticks in your soul. Maybe this is when you hear certain eternal truths within this particular call, and it goes all the way, and it pierces your heart and goes straight in, and it sticks as a remembrance. You actually remember some deeper truth, and you're able to release a false identity or a false belief system that's projected onto you, either from your family, friends, church, whatever. Pick one, anyone. And again, that's part of the progression of soul. So let me see, is there anything else that was particular on this eclipse? I don't guess there's anything else that was really just screaming to express itself outside of the fact that, again, this really is just such a powerful portal and time to take your power. And again, taking your power is not power over anything or anyone else. It's an internal knowing that goes all the way to the core of your being. It's on the atomic and subatomic levels of your body. It's knowing that you are always met and that you are meeting you. You don't have to have anyone else to meet you ever. And I think that's one of the biggest fallacies, that we're always looking for something in someone else to come meet us. That's another one of the big things that I always learned from Judith at its core. So, yeah, I think that's the bulk of the things that wanted to be reiterated. So I guess we will go and do some good refinement meditation work now. Let's see. Turn off some of this computer stuff and get myself calmed in a nice laid out position on the couch. So anyway, I hope that brings a lot of clarity for the people that have been trying to understand something in your own life, or the way that an energy is working, a dynamic is working or not working for you. And again, I know this is really hard. A couple of you, I mean, Linda, you haven't been on in a while, and Antoine, I haven't talked to you in a while, but I'm really glad you guys were able to join us for the call, and anyone else that hasn't been on in a bit, but I think most everybody else has been. Anyway, but I hope it's been helpful for y'all. But this meditation part has really, I think, been a very powerful thing for all of us. And the dynamic of these, and of course, both of you had been with Judith before, so you know this energy when we go in and do the meditation work. Almost everyone, I think, goes into a deep sleep. and that's part of the dynamic with it. I mean, if you know you're going into a place where you're almost asleep, then you're really allowing your body to go into a deep healing pattern of releasing stuff that it doesn't, that doesn't serve it. So, yeah. All right, if you're not in a place where things are quiet for you, just maybe find a spot in your home away from pets and kids, grandkids, whoever. Or many of you probably have already been laid out on your couch or your bed. So some of you may already be asleep. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. It was either Joyce or Bobette, maybe even a couple of you, that said it felt like when you would hear my voice, it was like the Pavlovian dog thing where you could just put them to sleep or like a whole different effect. I never imagined the sound of my voice to be that calming or hypnotic. And yet, everything really is a perfect creation. I mean, we've created each other as a group, and again, for a year anniversary, thank you to all of you that have continued to stay on the calls and come together as community. All of you have communicated that you've really appreciated, being a part of the group and being able to share these types of things, especially in this bizarre time. And I certainly appreciate all of you because, and just as a reminder, it's not me that's doing all of this energy work. I certainly have done enough work with Jude all these years, and I do work with Mother, Father, God. I work with the Archangelic Kingdoms. I work with all the Ascended Masters through Infinite Presence. I work with the Elohim Builders of Form. I work with the elemental kingdoms. I bring all of those in every time I do this work. And then, of course, transmuting anything. There's always Saint Germain and the Violet Flame, the Diamond Christ Light, and then the 12th Golden Ray. I don't know why I call it in, but I do. And all of these things really go in and assist us. Again, it's the unseen world. And so many people they're not aware of the unseen world, first. And even secondly, how many people really heartfully go in and on a heart level know that they're being met with the unseen world and can shift things. I do know I'm shifting things that way. And obviously I think you are all working at different levels and layers with that as well. But when we do this, we're matching a frequency. I was explaining that to some of the girls on the call one night. Everything is a frequency. So as you all have come here pretty regularly, we're all tuning into the same frequency of each other. And this is how telepathy works. It's how there's no separation in birds that migrate in groups. It's how you have herd movements in animal moves. The schools of fish move that way. Dolphins at sea. I mean, there's no separation in consciousness within certain groups. And so when we come together and we do this on a biweekly basis, we allow ourselves as an antenna to be aware of each other as multidimensional expressions. And so we've developed a tribe, a soul group. And when we come here, whether we're conscious of it or not, each one of you are holding the highest presence for others because you're in participation to the group. Whether you realize you're consciously doing it or not, we are. And again, Joyce says, she always loves this, when two or more are gathered, and it's true. It just takes two because you have a multiplied field. And when you go into the exponential multiplied field, it expands it. And we've had an average of 13 attendees on most of these calls, especially for the meditation. It says we're at 17 now, which is more than the average. So people, a couple extras were moved to come in and attend with us, for this evening's call, which is wonderful. And 17 is a prime number. It's not divisible by anything. So in its own way, it represents something like a 13. It has a certain magic to it. I'm not sure about the 17. I'm not really checked into the 17, but I do know that it is its own special mastery number in the fact that it does not have any other division to it. And there's something about that to be sacred in a unique presence. So, okay, let's go in, and we're going to, like we do on these calls, where we really want to go do deep clearing, heart clearing, the chakra clearing, and we did this on the last call, but we're gonna go in again and really just go to the deepest capacity of clearing, cosmic clearing that we've ever done so far in this lifetime. And a 0 point energy is a wonderful time to do this. The eclipses are windows into another portal. They are bringing us into a new timeline, different timelines. And they're very potent. So as you feel into this energy, many of you you'll feel phenomena that happen within your body. You will feel like your heart is opening more. You may feel like there's a rush of energy at your sacrum because the first root chakra is being deeply grounded in this field. As it comes up and moves through that, I don't think I even have to go through each individual chakra like we did the last telecall a week ago. That's already been activated. And even the ones of you that may have missed the last telecall, there's something about the energy in this, in the 0 point, which lets us go ahead and bring you in to that coherence. There's something about when you make a conscious choice to attend an energy where you are working with the all that is, when you're working with souls that are already on this path, it's like there's no there is no separation for sure. And there's already an immediacy there. And because, especially you, Antoine and Linda, y'all have already been on the calls before and worked with Judith for over 10 years, it's almost like coming back into and working with that energy just where you were even 10 years ago. It's almost like no time has passed. And that's another energy dynamic that's happening now. And it really is true. There is no time. 10 years ago didn't exist. It really is just like we saw each other 10 years ago. And that's immediacy. It's also another reason that everyone on the call will be able to go through and shift whatever it is that needs to be shifted for you where you are on the progression of your own soul. And yet that's always true. Many of you are going to feel like your heart is just blowing open like a lotus. You may feel like that reverberates out all the way through all of the systems in your body. As you breathe slowly and intently. But breathe in deeply. With each breath, you're going to feel like there's a deep renewal with every nanosecond of that breath of air. Many of you may feel a tingling throughout all of your body on the deep cellular level. What's happening is that you're awakening the electrical capacities. You're awakening the electric body. You are allowing in the adamantine particles that are already blasting the earth. They're right there. They're right next to us constantly. There's never any separation. But because we're doing this, we're consciously inviting those cells, all of the radiant energy, to come in and work with our field, to clear us on a cellular level. So go into that. Allow yourselves to be met as an infinite expression of Mother, Father, God. You may feel like your body is even floating. There'll be many different phenomena that each of you feel depending on what's happening. If you have any stray thoughts that have come into your mind that continually want to come and occupy space, if there's still any little strings of residue with your family or your friends or business people, if there's any cords that any places you still feel corded by your family or some other dynamic, and you want to release those, This is absolutely the time when you have the most power right in between the eclipses and the eclipse window. And you just ask Spirit to take care of that. With the highest potentiality of love that is afforded by the universe. It doesn't have to be a complete separation of energy between you and something you want to separate from, while at the same time it still can be something that lets you step into your own sovereignty, and it allows the other energy field of whatever it is to just kind of loosen the grip and kind of fall to the side or wherever you want it to go. If you really feel like you're done with an energy field of someone else, you can absolutely ask to be released from the soul contract in which you feel you've got brought into. Especially for non-family soul contracts. If you feel like you're carrying something from your family, either your parents, grandparents, your children, could be your siblings, brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, whatever dynamic it is. If you're carrying something that no longer serves you, ask for Saint Germain and the Violet Flame to come in and just let that radiate out in a way. Bring it to complete resolution. Just let that dissolve and fall away from your heart. Some of you may feel completely and immediately lighter in your heart just by hearing those words. You may feel that stagnant energy just leave your body and leave your field, almost to the point where you feel so light you could float away. We are all undergoing some of the deepest quantum healing that has ever been able to be manifest on the planet. In this alpha omega point of the midpoint of the eclipses, this is the great nothing. This is also a perfect time to ask for absolute and complete grace for every single one of us as human souls that are going through this evolutionary process. We can ask it on behalf of our souls as well as every other soul on the planet according to their soul contract. I'll also clarify here a bit, because we went into this one of the other nights in group discussion. As powerful creators, we absolutely have free will choice. And so does the dark. And so do people that are operating under the dark. At some point, it's not our business to go into where they are creating reality. A lot of people have a question on whether or not we're going to go into a bifurcation of energy on the planet, which would mean that good people go off to a good energy of Earth and bad people go to a bad energy of Earth. I can't answer that question. I still feel like it's all up in the air. There are people that have had to go to the side of the dark from a standpoint of they think that that's how they are supposed to be met in the external world. It's how they get money. It's how they get whatever it is. There's other people that will never sell their soul for anything ever and would just as soon be penniless and on the street for eternity before compromising their soul and spirit. That is the dichotomy that all of you as Earth people go through. It is the ultimate choice point of how are you going to create your reality. At the same time, when you're always coming from your place of the highest potentiality and expression, the world is a mirror trick. Everything, the world has to come meet you where you are. And as always, we're constantly going into deep death and rebirth processes. Every nanosecond we're in death and rebirth. While at the same time, this particular point really is at the beginning of the solar new year with the equinox, everything going into Aries. But it's also a time when we're really here at the beginning of a time where humans have not been in a very long time. If you go back through, depending on a certain level and layer, even Barbara Hand Clow talks about we're closing down the Kali Yuga age of 24,000 years. Actually, several talk about that in different ways of articulating. But we're closing that down. The time of Jesus, 2,000 years ago in Pisces, here we are at the end of Pisces. We're even closing that down. The old type of Christianity story. And we're here to bring about the highest sense of presence, just pure presence, as a way of being. In this powerful window. For all of you that have had physical miasms within your body, it may manifest itself as sciatica, different back pains. It can be muscle tensions. It can be spinal degradation. It may be hardened musculature. Maybe your myofascial tissues have all become very stiff over a certain time period because of non-use. Maybe it's just happened because of not processing years of emotion of things that have come up within the external world, and you haven't processed it through and moved it out. Some of you may feel so spacey right now that you don't, it's almost like you can barely know that you are here and in existence on this call. And indeed, some of you may go so deep into meditation and almost seemingly never find your way out. And yet you were always found. Many of you may feel like you're losing time. Do you feel like the time that you spent on the call in this particular moment, do you feel like in one moment it could be 5 minutes long, and another moment you feel like you've been on the phone for a day? The time-space continuum is shifting that deeply and that greatly. Realities are shifting on a dime. Feel this deep sense of peace and cosmic reset. And let's radiate this out into the world. Now notice, when we do this, we absolutely have free will choice to radiate it out. It's always an invitation for every other soul to choose to accept it or to not accept it, based on their own progression of soul. We can certainly request on behalf of other souls all 8 billion on the planet for their highest potentiality of healing based on their soul contracts at this moment of time to not take away from anything of their own soul growth and progression. Or to clear anything that particular soul still has to go through and clear on its own to do his or her own work with regards to soul progression. We've also done this on other calls, but let's also articulate this again as well for this one in the 0 point of the eclipses. Our souls are invited to go out all the way through cosmic awareness, to go through the Milky Way galaxy, to go through any of the universes and son-daughter universes and mother-father universes that our souls may have traveled to and got lost and left a part of the soul through some sort of dynamic or ritual or some unconscious aspect. May Spirit go and bring all of the aspects of our soul back and perform soul retrieval for not just us, but every single human being according to the soul contracts. Sometimes soul contracts are written so that other people can request on their behalf the greatest sense of protection. And since we don't know what we don't know, we can only request the highest potentiality. Some of you may have been taken into deep imagery with regards to this soul retrieval. You may have images brought up of when your soul chose to go so far out into the cosmos and leave a part of yourself there before coming back home. While we're in this deep level of healing, allow yourself to release any and every aspect of anything that you don't really have to know anything about. Just ask Spirit to take care of that. As you're in this space, place your attention on the toroidal field that is your body in its highest capacity of function, where the energy is coming in and out of the poles simultaneously through your crown chakra on top of your head, as well as in through the bottom of your feet and up through the sacral chakra and the whole, your whole system in pure alignment. And that field is flowing exponentially, just like it does with the Earth poles, in and out of the North and South Pole, and those energies go in one pole and out the other pole and around the field. The same thing is happening to your bodies. This is some of the most deep and profound healing that you can ever take yourself into. This is a level of wholeness like you've never known before, and yet you have, before the fall of mankind. imagine that we could all go to that initial place where we thought we knew better than God, and we could go clear that energy field. All the way back into Atlantis and Lemuria. What if we go in and we clear that for all of humanity's souls according to their capacity of soul contract to allow things to be healed on their behalf? May we ask to be taken into the highest capacity of our soul expression in this moment of time, and ask to be gifted with whatever it is that still may be missing, if there is anything that's missing at the depth of our core, with where we are at this moment of the progression of the collective human soul. Know that if you are yawning really deeply, or you're allowing an exhaustion to move through you, all that is releasing all old stagnant energy fields. Don't you feel exhausted for carrying all of this around for eons of time? And as we go in and allow ourselves to embody all of this beautiful, vast, cleared, divine expression of who we are, we absolutely can ask it on behalf of all of our family and friends and everyone that we know and beyond, in accordance with their soul contracts, to receive the greatest amount of healing and the highest potentiality of their capacity of seeing the world through their own divine template. Of course, including but not limited to their own divine soul contract and where they are in the progression. Because we're not creating their limitation. They are still in their creation of limitation while we put out the invitation for them to step into their own power on their own hero's journey. It's a very subtle shift in the way that we can work with another soul, and yet it's absolutely necessary to not encroach on the free will process of the soul evolution. We can also ask this not just on behalf of all of the members of the human family. We can also ask it on behalf of all cosmic beings and all other planetary races according to their own evolution of of divine expression as part of the oneness. We absolutely have to take great care because we would never want to place a limitation on any other being that we have no frame of reference to, because otherwise we could be coming from a place of complete limitation, even when we suggest that they're not in complete fullness and wholeness. I articulate it from the standpoint of any of the races that have come in and interbred with humans, with humanity, over eons of time. That's what I would ask that can be healed on the deepest core levels, the atomic and subatomic levels of the interconnectedness of the hybridization that occurred over centuries and millennia. May everything be allowed to turn back into pristine awareness as it was in its highest projection from the Godhead. And with that, may we all receive the greatest divine download from our own galactic center and the supergalactic center, as well as the Shapley attractor and the great attractor. And absolutely nothing can come in that would create any more distortion or take us away from our deepest capacity in divine human expression. Can't you feel so much density just falling away from all the false matrix of who you are? Do you not feel so much lighter as presence? As with everything, this has always been a perfect manifestation for each of you, for each of us. This is some of the most deep healing that you've ever allowed yourselves to go into. You're all invited to stay in this space as long as you wish, for the deepest capacity of healing that you wish to receive at this particular point of time. I know that each of us are in deep gratitude for the opportunity to hold this much presence and healing for each other and support the soul journey within this amazing 0 degree point or zero points energy of the eclipses, to bring in the highest capacity of our new divine expression as human. Always in eternal love and deep gratitude and infinite blessings for all of you. And don't forget, next week on Saturday, the 29th, we'll do this again for the actual eclipse energy, which is going to be extremely potent. Again, stay on for as long as you like.